the act of baking. Hello everyone and welcome back to Arguing Semantics. Today we are talking about Cyrano, the new film based on the musical, based on the play, based on the actual person, Cyrano de Bergerac. Loosely based on the actual historical figure, Cyrano tells the story of Cyrano de Bergerac, a confident, quick-witted, and skillful soldier of unfortunately short stature, who secretly harbors unrequited feelings to his long-term friend and confidant, Roxanne. Meanwhile, Roxanne reveals that she has fallen in love with another member of Cyrano's regiment, Christian. However, because Christian has no mind or vocabulary for romantics, Cyrano decides to help Christian become the man that Roxanne truly desires by composing poetry and letters, and at times becoming the very voice coming out of his mouth. So, Cyrano was excellent. I've got to say right out of the bat, Cyrano is definitely worth your time. You should definitely go see it. If you've seen the trailers, you've got a good idea of what the movie is, you should definitely go and see it. It's got very good direction, very good production values, very good performances overall, though there's some pluses and minuses there, and the music itself is also very, very good. To start with, the direction overall is excellent. It's nice to see Joe Wright get another win. His output lately has been literally hit or miss. Pan was a miss, but then he did The Darkest Hour, which was a hit, and then he did The Woman in the Window, which was another train wreck of a miss, but then followed that up with this, which is very, very good. You can tell he made a lot of the right choices with how he wanted to shoot scenes. The cinematography is overall very, very good. A lot of choosing the right moments to put the characters' performances on display and really giving you the intricacies of what's going on in their mind, as well as putting the music on display and putting the choreography on display. Everything just kind of works as a cohesive package. There are points where the cinematography just feels like very standard coverage, and there are a couple of Steadicam sequences that don't work quite as well. They come off feeling a little bit awkward and forced, especially with everything else, but they do a really good job with the cinematography and the editing to really put on display a bunch of small details and give some really nice flourishes. Specifically, there are two standout scenes. One where there's one sequence in particular where they make the act of baking romantic and, for lack of a better word, sensual. It's really well done. And then there's another sequence where they just show the characters enjoying the process of letter writing and reading, even if they're not in the same room, having that connection. That was also incredibly well done and incredibly well edited. There are just so many beautiful little moments in this. It just kind of stinks that there are these other little moments that kind of take you out of it because they're just very, very flat. At the same time, it feels like this was another pandemic film, so they were shooting with not a lot of time with a very, very small cast, which affected how certain aspects of the story played out, I feel. But then again, I've never seen the original musical, so I couldn't say for sure. However, the cinematography did do a good job of putting all the other aspects of the show into sharp relief. The production design is great. The costumes are excellent. The makeup is great. As I said, the lighting and colors that they choose are also really good. Set choices and set design, all of that is top-notch. No complaints here for that. And he does a good job of, like I said, putting the small moments in the performances really on display, which the performances here overall were very, very good. Peter Dinklage, of course, as the titular Cyrano de Bergerac, is absolutely excellent in here. His spoken and physical performances are top-notch. It really disappoints me that he didn't get an Oscar nomination for this. This is very much his best work. He delivers the confidence and bravado of Cyrano in a way that very few other actors, I think, could have really pulled off, but also showing the kind of deep-seated emotions and kind of inner turmoil that his character has, especially in a situation where he is trying to help somebody else win over the love of his life. The only problem with his performance was some of his singing was a little bit underdone. I feel like some of that was the way they decided to record and perform the music, but I'll get to that later. Overall, like I said, his performance was great. The rest of the cast was also excellent. Halle Bennett as Roxanne brought a very, very nice confidence to the character, showing how she is trying to navigate the world that she is in while also trying to find the things that she desires on the inside, and the way that she plays with the society around her in order to get what she wants, not necessarily in a bad way, because she is a woman, in France at that time period. It is also really cool to note that both Haley Bennett and Peter Dinklage both played the characters off-Broadway as well during the play's original run. So you can tell that's one of the reasons they have that level of comfortability with their characters. Ben Mendelsohn is excellent as Dinklage, the antagonist in the film. He always brings a nice level of confident menace to any villain that he plays, and definitely stood out as well. His singing performance wasn't as good as it could have been, but definitely gets the job done for what they were doing. The only acting performance that wasn't as good as it could have been was Kelvin Harrison Jr. as Christian. Some of his sequences came off a little over the top or just a little silly compared to the rest of the cast, which is especially hard when you're pairing him with Peter Dinklage, who is giving the performance of his life in this movie. It's kind of disappointing to see Cyrano not be totally matched by the performance there. But once again, totally good, great singing voice, just not always as good as he could have been, but he does handle some of the more dramatic moments well. I also liked the small scale that this film had. Once again, that might be because of the shooting it during the pandemic, but the movie chose to keep to a small scale. It lacked some of the bigger numbers and bigger moments that other musical productions have that, I was kind of missing a little bit. More big choreography moments, though the ones that were there were very good. The movie has a lot of very simple but very beautiful and very effective choreography that adds to the scene well and create these really, really good compositions. And by also not having some of these bigger numbers, it really allowed the music and the cinematography itself to really build off of each other in some cool ways. As I mentioned before, the bread scene or the letter scene are great examples. Even just the opening sequence as Roxanne is traveling through town and seeing just these little duets of dancing, really, really well done. I did really like the choreography, but in a lot of cases, instead of doing these big choreography scenes, they did these little moments with them where they're just sitting and singing and acting out in these soliloquies that worked incredibly well. The direction really chose to focus in and really give us what these characters were feeling as they were singing. And that being said, the music itself was also very, very good. There were only two things that I felt were a little bit off. One was the second song that introduces Cyrano was a little bit weak. They decided to show him verbally battling somebody while physically battling them, and the fight choreography didn't necessarily match the music. They did this spoken word almost rapping for it that also didn't totally mesh, didn't totally work. And the other thing I would have liked is there's no big upbeat bombastic song in it. There are definitely some power ballads in there and some definite earworms. The opening song, which they use as a motif a couple of times, is just so good. The overall music and singing was good. There are only a couple of points where the singing performances didn't totally work, and I feel like a lot of it comes down to it felt like they did most of this music with live singing, which is always a crapshoot. It's nice to hear people's actual voices and to not hear it processed and the audio not feeling like it's outside of the scene. But if you're gonna do that, it requires quite a few things. You have to have really good vocalists, you have to have great acoustics, and you have to have really good sound equipment. Without those three things, it doesn't always work. And this movie kind of shifted back and forth there. There were points where it was nice because, like I said, with the nice intimate moments where they just pulled in on the characters and gave them a chance to, sing their mind, it really gave you that feel for them by, really pulling them in. But then there were other points where it was like the songs were undersung to the point of the lyrics being lost a little bit, and the voices not necessarily meshing because they were undersinging. If you're going to undersing, you really have to have the skill to do that properly. It's not easy to do that. You want to rely more on your bigger moments if you're going to do that. But overall, it did still work, and it did feel really, really nice. The music and compositions on the whole are just very, very good. And the only other minor problem is they use many of the motifs so many times that they kind of blur together. But still love the music, and I'll probably be listening to this soundtrack for quite a while. spoilers ahead. I'll put something over here to say where to go to, but I do want to talk about a couple of things. The biggest one being, I love that they chose to preserve the tragic ending of the story. They kind of messed with it a little bit to make it seem a little bit more realistic, but overall I do like that. And they messed with like the final emotional center of the ending a little bit, but they did keep the tragic nature of it, which I was very appreciative of. Too often this story, it's like, while I do like the more happy ending versions of Cyrano that they like to do, I do like how they handled this one very well. The last two sequences in the final act are just absolutely heartbreaking and incredibly well handled. I was definitely in tears for quite a bit of it. Just incredibly well done. And one song in particular near the end, these soldiers sending letters back home, was just absolutely heartbreaking. The final moment of the movie is also very well done and did serve as a very nice end point on the whole thing. So wrapping up, overall, really liked this movie. The direction was very good, cinematography was good, art direction was good, choreography was good, music was good, the performances overall were really good. It doesn't have that certain element that will really make this a true classic, but I could definitely see this one becoming a cult favorite for a lot of people. I think for us, me and my wife, is definitely going to be one we're going to come back to a lot. My wife was laughing because, another spoiler, skip ahead. My wife was also laughing because her favorite musicals are the ones that end tragically. So between this one and Moulin Rouge. But yeah, this is just an incredible movie. I really highly recommend it. It's very much a limited release, so you might have to go out of your way to find it, but if you can, it is worth it to go see it in the theater. This was an incredible movie that had just a few things that really stopped it from being amazing, although I do think that it deserves more Oscar nominations than it got. I think it was only nominated for costume design, and I think it could have been nominated in a lot more categories, in particular Best Film, but that's because there are other films that shouldn't be on that list. I don't think it would win, but it definitely deserved to be on there. This was just an excellent, well-done movie, and it's nice to see a musical that isn't a gigantic production that tells its story with subtlety and elegance over bombast. It just was a very, very pleasant experience. Yeah, big recommendation. Definitely go out to see it. 2 big thumbs up. You know, if I had to give it a number, it's like a 9 out of 10. It doesn't quite get up to the top, but it is so good and definitely worth your time. Anyway, that being said, I'm recording this well after midnight, so my name is James, and this has been Arguing Semantics.
Like and subscribe.